Hey everybody, fight commentary breakdowns. Very likely this is going to go on fight commentary chats, but maybe we'll put it on the main channel. So we have Sifu Blake, who many of you have seen on my channel. We featured him 2 fights when he used Kung Fu against the Muay Thai people, and I'm about to feature him again. I found his first fight when he used Choy Li Fut against the Muay Thai people. So okay, Sifu Blake, welcome, man.
Hey man, thanks for having me, and yeah, thanks for the feature. Like, it means a lot for myself and for Kung Fu as a whole. It's really cool to see.
Absolutely. And I'm always down to feature good stuff. So, you know, if anyone of your students or anyone that follows you wants to send me stuff, I'm always down to feature it. So I just want to let people know. And with that being said, Blake, let's just get started. Let's talk about your journey. So obviously you're Australian. When did you discover martial arts in your life?
Growing up, my father always did martial arts like for a very long time. He did like savate, so French kickboxing, a bit of like Kyokushin and stuff when he was a kid. So that was my first exposure to it. I never really trained in anything as a young child. Sort of started around high school age, 15. I found Kung Fu, mainly because I wanted to do lion dance. Like, that was my initial introduction to it, is I wanted to do lion dance. I didn't really have much interest in the actual combat side or anything like that. And then as training went on, I just sort of switched over and loved the combat side more so than anything else.
I see. So you wanted to do lion dance. How did you discover lion dance? I think that's very interesting that you first wanted to do lion dance before you wanted to do Kung Fu.
Yeah, so like just growing up watching like old Kung Fu movies, like all the Shaw Brothers cinema stuff, like Dreadnought, all that kind of stuff, just martial club, made me fall in love with lion dance. And Kung Fu, you know, sort of came from like Lao Ga Yern and stuff like that. Like, I always remember there was a scene from Drunken Master where he fights Jackie Chan underneath a train with a spear. I just really wanted to do that. I was like, man, I really want to learn the spear. And that kind of just progressed the journey from there, which was really cool.
I see. And when did you start going from kind of the learning the lion dancing and learning kind of the, you know, these cool dance moves to sparring with your Kung Fu?
Yeah. So one like training at the club that I was part of, like lion dance and Kung Fu were really hand in hand. And then after about a year of training, like pretty full on, I decided to take up sparring and then went from there. And then one of my seniors was already fighting against Muay Thai guys. Like, he's quite famous in Australia for fighting against Muay Thai. And just got, you know, started training with him more. And then once I, you know, a few years of sparring, I decided to give it a go and just jumped in and had a whirl. And that was my first fight that you saw on YouTube, the one. Yeah.
I see. Wow. So basically, besides kind of just saying, okay, let me just test my Kung Fu, was there any other kind of motivation, or was it really just like, okay, I've been sparring enough and my senior does it, so let's do it?
Yeah, it was kind of, for me, like, the big drive's always been that, like, I want to test my skill. Like, I always want to be challenged. Like, I think doing martial arts without a challenge is, in my opinion, a bit of a waste of time. Like, I just don't see the point. And it doesn't have to be a combat challenge. It could be like competitive, you know, performance stuff, but you've got to always be reaching for the like highest level. And then on the other side, like, as I grew into more and like exposed more to combat sports and, you know, MMA and Muay Thai, kickboxing, all this stuff, you start realizing that Kung Fu especially doesn't really have a great respect in the combat circle. And that's a big drive for me, is that everything that I do is Kung Fu. Like, I haven't learned any other martial arts. All I do is Kung Fu. And that's been my drive, is to really show that, you know, especially our style, Choy Li Fut, like, we're really famous for being able to bang, so to speak, and we want to keep that rep.
Yeah. So tell me about the first time you fought a Muay Thai guy. What was the thoughts like, you know, when you were walking out and even before the weigh-in? How was the whole process? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was a pretty extreme process, because my first fight, I did a bit of a crazy weight cut. Like, I'm 184 centimeters and I've been that height for a long time. And in my first fight, I fought at 58 kilos, which is real light for my height.
Yeah, that is really light for you.
Yeah, so that was very light. I was very, very skinny, which was fine. Like, it didn't bother me, but the weight cut was pretty brutal. So that was kind of my first experience to that. Leading up to the fight, there was sort of this conception that I was going to fight with shin guards on. And then night of the fight, they were like, no shin guards, just mouth guard gloves. And I was like, whoa, you know, Muay Thai, seeing guys kicking down trees. Yeah. It's going to be pretty full on. But you know what, at the end of the day, all I could think of when I was walking out was like, just don't look bad. Like, don't look like a fool. That was it. I wasn't worried about getting hit or anything. Like, and when I did get hit, I remember the first kind of part of the fight, I kind of just had my hands down and I got lit up a bit, a few punches to the face. And then it just kind of dawned on me, like, I was like, this guy's the same size as me. We're only like 60 kilos. He doesn't hit that hard. I've been sparring with guys who were a lot better than me, a lot bigger than me, and getting hit by them, and I can take that. So that was the whole thing. And I lost the fight, unfortunately, on a decision, split point decision. I got a point deducted because I was trying to do a spinning back fist, accidentally connected with an elbow, which is fine. It happens. The guy who I fought, Tim Levins, in the video, we're actually pretty good friends. Like, I talk to him every now and then. He coaches at a gym nearby me. Really cool dude, and went on really far in the sport. And the big thing I took away from it was that, like, I really had to just work on my clinch a bit more because, I just wasn't really familiar a lot with how Thai boxing guys use the clinch, because in our clinching, we're allowed to do throws and takedowns and things like that. But in Thai boxing, you can't. So I had to really modify that, which you can see in my second fight. Like, I was a lot more comfortable in the clinch and utilized it a lot better.
And the second fight was the second and third fight were the ones that we saw on Fight Commentary. So I've yet to see the first one. I have it saved up, so I will watch it soon. But it makes sense because I know in Thai boxing rules, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not like, the throws are limited, right? You can't do like judo-esque throws and stuff like that. So that limits your Thai Li Fut.
Yeah, correct. Because, like, I've also fought under Sandar rules as well, which allows like judo-style throws or wrestling-style takedowns. And yeah, Thai boxing is more about like dumping or like, modified sweeps. There's no like over the hip throws. So you have to really adjust to that. It can be quite different.
So that's interesting. Another thing to touch on is that you've adapted your Kung Fu to fight Muay Thai, but Kung Fu is always your style, right? You've never kind of like trained in Muay Thai or trained in American kickboxing or anything.
No, not at all. Modifications to the style, like, I'm used to it. A lot of people on YouTube, they throw the comments in there like, that's not Choy Li Fut, blah, 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 all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Choy Li Fut looks amazing and our forms look great. But when you fight, it doesn't look like that. And you've got boxing gloves on. You can't use, your tap choy, anything like that. But a straight punch with a twist is still a tap choy. You notice I use my back fist a lot, the gua choy. Still there. My front kick, is for our branch of Choy Li Fut, our front kick is one of our signature kicks. It's not a teep. It's not a push. It's a stab. It's very different. It wears you down. But modification comes in, you have to learn ring craft, how to move in the ring, how to clinch, how to be fit, because you go in the street, fight might be over in 5 seconds, but in the ring, you got big pillows on your hands, so to speak, and the fight can be, 5 3-minute rounds. So modifications have to happen.
Yeah. And I think you touch on something so important that we've explored on Fight Commentary Breakdown too, which is that just because something looks like how normal, fighting in the ring looks, doesn't mean that person arrived at it through whatever style you think it is, right? Exactly like Blake said. You put gloves on, you put rules in there, you put a ring there, and then, all this stuff. People are going to almost look the same. If you really look, you're going to see some differences, but people are going to almost look the same.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. I mean, and, boxing gloves do limit strikes. Like, you can't palm strike, you can't, do all that stuff. But, there's little things that are differences. Like, I throw a spinning back fist a fair lot. That's been Choy in Choy Li Fut, is spinning back fist. I also throw a sort of upwards kind of jab, which in our system's like an upwards chop choy, like it's an upward stabbing punch. It's just completely different. It's not an uppercut. It's not a jab. It's kind of in between. It's good for getting under people's guards, things like that. So, and as you saw as well in some of my other fights, I use the spinning back kick a fair bit as well. Yeah. I definitely don't see many Muay Thai guys throwing spinning back kicks. So,
yeah. And a video that I just put out, Quan Kicker did a similar kick and knocked out a TKO'd a Thai guy in a Muay Thai match. So, yes, those are very effective, man. Yeah, very effective. A lot of guys don't see it coming. And if you're not training against somebody who – spars the same way as, somebody from a different style spars, it's very hard to get a hold of, how to work that rhythm. Yeah. For myself, there's plenty of Muay Thai guys for me to spar, but the guys that I fight, there's not many Kung Fu guys for them to spar. Yeah. So, it's a big advantage. In Choy Li Fut, in our particular Choy Li Fut as well, every single student, doesn't matter who they are, they're all southpaw. So none of us are orthodox at all, even if you're right-handed. So I'm right-hand heavy, but I'm southpaw. Our whole system is taught southpaw. Wow. Is that for most of Choy Li Fut, or is that just your system, the system you train in?
Most Choy Li Fut is is sort of southpaw, orientated. Ours just takes it very heavy, like everything's southpaw. We focus on putting that left at the back so we can twist our body into the punch to make up for the lack of power usually on our left. Also a bit deceptive too, because people always, they want to go towards that right hand because they're like, oh, that's probably going to be the weak one. But obviously that's our power hand. It's at the front. It's closer to the target. It's a pretty big difference. And our particular branch of Choy Li Fut also mixed in Jalgar and Northern Shaolin into the mix. So we use a lot of different techniques that some other Choy Li Fut systems might not use as well.
Wow. It sounds like you train in a very complete striking system. And I think this is a good thing to touch on, which is when all those videos started going viral of Kung Fu masters getting destroyed, how did your school and the Kung Fu people you trained with kind of react? Were you guys kind of like, yeah, we expected this coming out of China? Were you like, ugh?
Yeah, look, I mean, personal opinion, like I'm not here to speak for anyone else, but I watch those videos and I go, cool. You got a guy who's obviously trained properly, like in a professional fighting system like MMA, fighting someone who's well past their prime in a lot of those videos, and that already to me, I'm like, what's the point? But at the same time, like you've got to remember in traditional martial arts, there's martial arts for combat and martial arts for health. And depending on your teacher or your training style, that's the difference. Like, I think that most Choy Li Fut guys who are trained in combat, they're going to be able to stand and bang with most people. Like, okay, they might not have the ring experience, or you take them to the ground and, do jiu-jitsu or something. They're probably not going to be able to beat you there, but they're definitely going to be able to stand and strike pretty damn well. So, those videos, good for exposing people saying stuff that they shouldn't be saying, but, probably not the best way to go about it. I think if you're going to challenge somebody who's actually a match for you.
Exactly. So tell me more about Kung Fu in Australia. Is it big -- do a lot of people train in Kung Fu, or is it kind of mostly people train in Muay Thai and MMA and stuff like that?
Yeah, look, I think Muay Thai and MMA is super popular in Australia. Like we've got a really strong combat sports like community in Australia. Like fighting's kind of, I don't know, it just seems like it's just something we like doing and it's in our blood. Kung Fu, look, it's not that popular. Probably in Australia, in Perth where I'm from, Wing Chun is the most popular Kung Fu style, and that's globally, I think, like everywhere, with the Yip Man movies and stuff. Wing Chun has become like this explosion. But Kung Fu is still pretty popular. Like we've had a few like sort of quite famous Kung Fu guys in Australia who really pioneered the movement in Australia to begin with. And that's kind of kept it going. But I think a lot of people look at Kung Fu and they go, it's more about that, the fancy kind of what they see in the movies. They don't really go to it as like, this is self-defense or combat ready or anything like that. So I think that kind of harms the community a little bit. But at the end of the day, people are going to train in what they're interested in. And if they get something out of it, that's really the main thing.
Yeah. So besides taking on Muay Thai guys, do you go cross train with other Kung Fu schools, or do you ever like fight MMA or any other types of styles and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I regularly do sparring with some Wing Chun guys as well, who have just made friends through like a Kung Fu federation in Western Australia here. We help each other out because, it's good to spar against different people. Everyone moves differently, strikes differently. I've sparred with a few MMA guys as well. Very interesting, very different. Kickboxing, pretty much anyone. If anyone wants to, mix it up, I'm always keen. Like I'll do boxing as well with boxing guys. I just won't kick or knee or elbow, because it's only going to make me better anyway, like having to use only my hands. And, it's a very interesting change of thing. I mean, even myself, like I'm always, as I said, I'm always trying to challenge myself. I'm currently like just dabbling in a bit of like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and stuff, because my goal is to bring my Choy Li Fut to MMA and fight under their rules in their, in their field, and basically learn defense against the ground. Got to learn something else. So, but striking wise, it'll all be pure Choy Li Fut.
Dude, I love this, man. You like Fight Commentary Breakdowns loves to feature Chilala, who's bringing his Wing Chun into kickboxing and MMA and stuff. You're like the Chilala of Australia. I love this. You're bringing Choy Li Fut into the combat arena. I love it, Blake.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about teaching. Obviously you're Shifu, Blake, and you have your own school. When did that start? Did you start teaching pretty early in your journey in martial arts? Did you just kind of like it was a decision, or people had to push you into teaching because you were so good? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I started teaching pretty early on. Like I'd only been training for about probably 6 months, and my Sifu was like, look, you can come down and help out with the kids. And the philosophy was that, like, if you can teach somebody something, you're just going to be better at it yourself.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with that. And I taught for my Sifu at his club for about, it would have been about 10 years I was teaching for him full time, like just teaching all the time, like basically just chucked in my job and just did martial arts full time and loved it. It was amazing. And then in 2015, our grandmaster Gong Heng, who my school is named after, passed away. And I made the decision to break out on my own and open my own school. So I've been doing that since 2015. Love it. Training people. It's amazing. I got permission to name the school Gong Heng Gun, which is Gong Heng Association, from his family in Hong Kong, because I attended the funeral and stuff. And they said, look, you open your own club, we give you permission. Wow. And it was awesome. And now, so we wear the same uniform as the club in Hong Kong and the club in China. So we're all one group. We don't change it up. We don't have any weird grading system. We've just gone real traditional Kung Fu. Everyone wears a red belt, white T-shirt, black pants, just like you see in the movies. And it works great. Like, people love it. And, teaching is amazing. Like, if you can teach somebody a skill, it's honestly, you're going to be pretty damn good at the skill yourself. So, and yeah, that kind of, like, for me, that was the real love, was that teaching people, like training the next generation is amazing. Like, I've had a couple of students who I've taught and they've fought and they've done amazing, and it's really good. And I've got a couple more who are going to be fighting next year as well. And, we try to keep that spirit alive of fighting. But I've also got state and national champion, like, forms competitors as well, who have done, like, routines and stuff in comps. And, because fighting's not for everyone. And you've got to, like, as a martial artist, you really got to understand that. Some people just doing it for fun or for fitness or for the traditional art. Yeah.
And I love what you said about, the thing is, if you can teach it, it really helps you learn too. I love it. And one of my coaches always encourages me to learn how to hold pads. And he always encourages me to kind of, just try some combos with some of the other students who started after me. So I didn't realize how much it helps until you're standing there, just having them hit pads. You're like, oh, first of all, when they hit your pad, right, you learn to kind of like brace a little. So that helps you. It's like the second step. And then the third step is, of course, learning how to take a hit. But it also kind of, like, you see them do it. You're like, okay, what can work for them if they're attacking me, et cetera. So it really helps to kind of teach someone, and it helps you to kind of learn much better.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it, like, and pad holding especially, like, it just gets you better at, like, fighting as well. Like, you learn how to counter and how to block, because your hands are there just like you're guarding, like, it's no different. And then you see, okay, well, they did this, maybe I do that when I do it, and you start thinking about your own techniques. And I find as well, the biggest thing for me was that students will always ask you the craziest questions. Like, they will find anything to ask you about a technique. Like, I always think, the technique's not that complicated. Where are you getting these questions from? Yeah. But then it makes you think, you go, hang on, what is the answer to the question? And then it builds your own knowledge. Because for us as well, like, we're a Kung Fu school, we don't just teach our students to punch and kick. We teach them the culture, the history, everything about our style. So, that's pretty important for us, and for all my instructors who help me out, they learn the same stuff. Yeah. And another thing I love what you're doing is that all the students have the same uniform. I think one of the things that really made me surprised, right, because I did Kung Fu in China, and then I came over to America. And even before I did Kung Fu in China, very early 90s America, I did Kung Fu. And when I came back in the 2000s to do Kung Fu here, somehow the commercialization kind of changed the Kung Fu culture in some of the schools I trained in. Suddenly there were belts, and I was like, there was never belts when I did Kung Fu in Chicago. There's never belts when I did Kung Fu in China. So I love that you guys are keeping it authentic, man. One of the things that really angered me about kind of my Kung Fu training when I was here in America was just, it was so commercialized. It was like not about learning the arts right. And it looks like you guys are sticking to kind of, let's learn the art, learn the culture, also learn how to fight. But like none of the, oh yeah, charge you for the belt, charge you for the belt test. Oh, you're better than them because you have this belt. He did, none of that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, in Kung Fu wise, I mean, a belt's just to hold up your pants. Like, that's literally all it was for. Like, it's not about a rank. It's not about that. Like, you progress at your own pace, and some people learn faster, some people learn slower. Like, and that's the reality of it. And, my students personally, like when I teach them, forms or whatever, or techniques, like I have levels that they go through. but they learn at their own pace. Like they won't move up or learn anything new until I tell them, like, look, you're ready for this. Let's move on to the next thing. And that's, so important, I think, as a Sifu as well, is to acknowledge that every student is individual. They're all human beings and all people. They're not just a number who's paying money into your wallet.
Yeah, totally. So, Sifu Blake, I know now you have a kid, right? So how did having a kid change up your martial arts journey? I think this is a very fun thing to explore.
Yeah, so I've actually got a stepson as well who's 12, and then I've got a daughter who's nearly 2. Wow. My wife I actually met through Kung Fu, so she's also been training very long time, like even longer than I've been training. She was a little kid when she started. Wow. And, look, having a kid did change it up. Like it made it, you don't sleep as much and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, I still train just like I would normally. She's, my wife's amazing support for me. And I bring my little girl down to the school all the time. She'll run around and, punch the pads and stuff and do a little bit of horse dance and, get involved and be part of it. She absolutely loves lion dance, like is absolutely fascinated by lion dance and all the lion heads and stuff. So, and even during Chinese New Year, we'll bring her around a few performances when we're doing lion dance and just put earphones on her and stuff like that. And I mean, like Kung Fu's my life and that's my family as well. So, she's just part of that, and I think the only thing that's really made me change is think like, well, I want to make the school as good as possible so that when she grows up, she'll be able to hang out there and get everything that I got out of training in martial arts, and give her the confidence to, especially because I've got a daughter, she's a young girl. I train probably 80% of my students are female. And honestly, the reason is because we teach stuff that works, that's going to keep them safe, and that's really my goal with the school, is to create that community vibe. And, just like traditional Kung Fu schools in Hong Kong or China, they were like community watch groups. And that's pretty much how we see ourselves. We're helping the community any way we can. We get involved in different programs and stuff because of that. So, but having a kid just made training better, really. It's just awesome. Something I can share with my kid.
It gives you almost more motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Because, wanted to be proud of me and, wanted to see that her dad's, good at what he does. And, that's awesome. Yeah.
And I think it's really awesome just that a lot of your students train under you because they want to know what works, right? And the thing I will add to it is if Blake can beat Muay Thai guys in the ring, his stuff will definitely work on the street too, right? And so it's like the difference is on the street, just remember, you're not wearing pads, so, you got to be careful how you hit. Don't break your hand. Don't break your wrist. But, like, a lot of it's the same, and run away when you can. I mean, it's like the punches and stuff work. The kicks work.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I worked as well for a few years, like, as a security guard / bodyguard kind of stuff as well. So, I know a lot about the legislation in Western Australia and, like, what constitutes actual self-defense and things like that. And using, like, just using basic tactics and stuff, that's what I teach my students. Like, in a street fight, you shouldn't be squaring up like this, like go hands open, because you just look more defensive, try and diffuse, escape, avoid first, like before you start having to throw down with someone. Because as you said, you punch wrong, you break your own hand. Like, even today's day and age, you do an elbow to someone and you open their face up and, their blood gets into your blood. We got so many bloodborne diseases these days, like people carrying, blades, things like that. You can never be too sure. So, my always thing is like, use your tactics, disengage, get out of there, run away. Live to fight another day. You want to fight people, go do it in the ring. But, safer.
And Blake, I love the fact that you have that training of kind of self-defense and being a bouncer, knowing the laws, because I think a lot of people, not even martial artists, but a lot of people who are kind of, whether greeters in supermarkets or greeters in whatever store, sometimes don't even understand these things, right? I had an incident, it was at the Apple store, where like this guy got so close in my face, and I was like, I had an appointment to go in, because we're doing the distancing thing. So like, I made an appointment, I came back to go in, and he got in my face, and I was like, I had to talk to the manager. I'm like, you can't do that to people, man, because someone might interpret it threateningly. Like, so like
100%.
Yeah. So like I had to, I actually, I don't think I told them this, but next time I see the manager, I might just teach them, don't get in their face, but you could hold out a hand very gently. This is distance, right? Just very gentle. No, none of this, just like hold out a hand. No, not even two hands. This might even be too confrontational. Just one hand, because he's not really threatening. It's just a customer that you need to tell him to wait, right? Don't get in the face. Just tell him, just like, so these are things to think about right? From like a legal / self-defense / protecting yourself, you know, but like so many people aren't trained to do that. They're working the door and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, the sad truth of that is as well, though, is that like, you know, people aren't educated in it, and we live in a world where people really should be. I run a program with a company that I work for. We travel around our state, go into hospitals, and we teach nurses to deal with aggressive patients and things like that. And we teach them the same thing you're talking about, like tactical distancing, you know, hand up, stay back, all this kind of stuff. And it's amazing for them because, you know, there is such high, you know, aggression in healthcare and, you know, customer service, but they just don't know what to do. And sometimes it can be the employee themselves setting off the situation, you know, the escalation occurs because of poor body language or, you know, just a right to be, you know, need to be right all the time, basically, you know, like they're just like, well, I'm the employee, I'm in charge, but it's like, you don't need to be like, you know, it's not worth getting punched in the face over.
Yeah. And I honestly didn't understand this until I was the receiving end of that, right? I'm just like, wow, I've never been in a situation where I literally felt like defending myself because that guy came at me so aggressively. But it shows what you said. Like, I have a friend who's going through a medical program right now. He's going through an MD PhD, and he deals with some patients. Sometimes he even tells me, he's like, Jerry, maybe I need to learn jiu-jitsu or something. It's like, yeah, you should probably, just so that way you know distances, you know how to be calm. So, you know, if you tense up just because you're afraid, that'll make other people afraid too, right? So like, these are things to think about.
Yeah, 100%. You know, it comes down to like a neurological response as well. Like, everyone's different. You have your fight, flight, fright, or freeze response, you know, and it can be very different depending on your person. And then the other person's going to have a reaction depending on what you do, you know, like if you freeze on the spot and tense up, they might see it as aggressive. You know, so that kind of thing.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. So, tell me about what is next for you. I mean, you have so much going on. You have a school, you have programs, you teach nurses and stuff like that. What is next? Are you going to, you also told me that you're going to try to incorporate some of this into maybe MMA and test it out there. Tell me more about what's going on in the future for you.
Yeah, so in the future, I mean, November 14th is coming up, 2 weeks. I'm fighting Muay Thai. So that's pretty soon. Like, that's happening. It was going to be December 6th, but we got a call yesterday saying, like, hey, we got an opponent for you on November 14th. Do you want it? Yeah, we're going ahead. Fighting a bit heavier than what I would normally. Like, I'm fighting at 75 with an aim of eventually going to like 72.5 or 70. It's just better for my frame, be a bit stronger, a bit bigger. And like, you know, as I said, I'm running my school, which is my full-time thing. I'm also studying at university. So the goal is basically with my university degree is I'm studying exercise physiology, which is basically like exercise focused on rehabilitation and, you know, quality of life and strength and movement. And the goal is basically at the end is that I want to create, like, I'll open a clinic eventually at my school and create a program, you know, and a space for fighters and martial artists who've been injured, you know, to have something that works for them. Because, you know, a professional athlete, if you tell them like, oh, just sit down and rest, that's not going to work for them. If they're a professional fighter, they need to be training, they need to be doing stuff. So you need to find modified ways to make them better, make them stronger, keep that thing going. And then, fighting going forwards, like, I want to keep doing it pretty much, you know, as much as I can until I can't. You know, as I said, I want to transition, have a few MMA bouts where I can, you know, my passion's always going to be striking. Like, I like striking and I'll stick to that. But I think for me personally, my own personal journey has always been about proving that, you know, we're not just a movie style Kung Fu, you know, we are something that works. And, you know, if people, you know, MMA at the moment is the biggest thing and, you know, it's exploded. Well, cool. Let's get in there and mix it up. Let's see how we go. And, you know, win, lose or draw, it doesn't matter. And it's never been about that for me. Like, I lost my first fight, and you know what? I have my loser's trophy sitting on my cabinet shelf at the school, and everyone always asks, "Oh, why do you put that one up? You know, you lost." I said, "Man, you learn from your losses." Like, and you know what? I lost, but I got in there. I don't see many other people getting in there and giving it a go.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's the key. Two things. One is, it's awesome you're fighting on the 14th, so that means I'm going to get this out before the 14th. So this gives me a good deadline to get this talk out, because I have so many talks to edit, right? And so it's like, but I got to get this out before the 14th. And then the second thing is, I love what you're studying in college. Is it a 4-year degree program, or is it like a master's? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's 4-year for the base degree. And then after that, I can do honors or a PhD. Sort of jury's out on that decision at the moment. I think I'm going to do the 4 years and just get into doing some work and stuff. But who knows, in the future, I might come back and do some research on stuff. I was part of a group when I first started doing, like, they were doing a research project on concussion-based injuries in sport and like impact-based injuries and things like that. And they were testing sort of the validity of like head guards in, you know, rugby, you know, things like that, combat sports. So we got to go in and I did some kicks on pressure plates and punches and stuff just to see how much damage was being occurred. So that was pretty cool. So
Wow.
there was something like that in the future. Like that'd definitely be something I want to jump on board on, you know, because anything to make combat sports better and just improve martial arts in general would be amazing. Because yeah, like, you know, there's a lot of mystery surrounding, especially head guards in combat sports. I'm not a fan of them, but you know, everyone each to their own.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's so interesting. You mentioned that because I personally, you know, I've had injuries that I thank my physical therapist, Nick Davis, so much for helping me get past. And it's like the reason Nick Davis worked so well with me was because Nick Davis was a wrestler. Yeah. So like he understood the certain type of mentality that kind of people who do combat sports had, right? And it's interesting because I had another physical therapist who tried, to his credit, he tried, but he did like Taekwondo and Hapkido. So somehow he wasn't able to understand what I was going through. And he gave me some upper back exercise that I still use, but it didn't help my neck. And, you know, so it's just like, it's so important for someone like you to study this type of stuff because like you said, people who do sports medicine, maybe someone who works with like, you know, football players or something, it's different, right? Like we need people who do combat sports to study this. And like, the more I talk to people like you, the more I work with my physical therapist, like Nick Davis, the more I kind of want to do it too. I'm serious. Like the amount that Nick has helped me and then I've taken his knowledge and helped. Funny that you're doing jiu-jitsu, right? Jiu-jitsu people have the biggest muscle imbalances. A lot of them can't do this. A lot of them can't do this either. So I've been teaching them all the neck exercise and the upper back exercise I've been learning to help myself. And a lot of them have been like really helped by it, including like black belts in jiu-jitsu, man. So like I realized there's a big niche for this, man, and you're helping fill the niche, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 100% encourage you. And I think whenever the case, whether you open up your own clinic or something, I think we will go, like whether we've come to Australia to visit you or something, like I 100% got your back on this. I want to see you through the whole journey.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, like hopefully, you know, we just got to wait for those borders to open. Yeah. It's making it pretty hard to go anywhere at the moment, you know?
Yeah. The last thing I was going to ask you, is there a big Chinese community in Perth?
Yeah, like look, we've got a Chinese society in Perth called Chunghua. And like, yeah, they're massive. Like they've been around for years. Like I've done a few things with them. I used to coach at one of their Chinese schools teaching martial arts to kids. I've been part of their dragon dance team and dragon boat team as well because they didn't have guys to fill in. So our club jumped in and took over. They've been around for years. There's a few like other societies as well. There's like a Hakka association as well. And like sort of a few like Cantonese groups. So the Chinese community is pretty big here. I think like, you know, we are relatively close to China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, those areas. And because we're in the same time zone as well, I think it's a lot easier for them to move here than say Melbourne, things like that. And Australia just being pretty multicultural in general. Like, you know, there's a lot of people from every walk of life. I mean, I've only got one Chinese student in my school and she's adopted. She's not even, you know, she's not actually even Chinese. She's adopted by a Western couple. But you know, it doesn't change the fact that people are still learning these martial arts. You know, I mean, in Hong Kong, it's not really much different. There's not a lot of people learning Kung Fu anymore. You know, they're all going to learn MMA, Muay Thai, you know, things like that, or focusing on their careers. You know, it's like, you know, myself, I'm Australian. I don't play Australian football. You know, it doesn't interest me at all. I do Kung Fu instead, you know. So, but our community here is very strong. Like the Chinese community is amazing, always super supportive. Like, we're always part of all the events and stuff, and they're always happy to have us, which is really cool. Like, I think it's really great to see that, you know, despite my skin color, it's like, you know, I'm still promoting their culture, you know, come and be part of everything, which is amazing. Yeah,
that's awesome. And one last thing I will mention, and it's awesome what Blake is doing, is I've talked to women here in LA who have never thought about what they do if someone grabs them. Or if someone just like hugs them, right? Dude, I still can't believe like this day and age people don't think about what to do. Hey, what if someone just like starts following you? What do you do, right? So that's another reason to go train. It's another reason to go train. Like whether Blake school or some other school, go train because you have to be aware. It's not about being paranoid. It's just you have to be aware and you have to be prepared, right? Yeah. In fact, if you're aware and prepared, you're not paranoid. You can chill because you know what to do. If stuff goes wrong, you recognize it.
Exactly. And it's also a confidence thing. Like, build your confidence up, you know, like my experience from, you know, working at doors and working at venues and stuff, and also doing bodyguarding, and also like having my fair share of street altercations as well. People don't go for people that are strong. Like, they're going for the weak link. You know, people are opportunistic predators is the way that I always think about it. You know, people don't wake up and go, all right, I'm going to brush my teeth. You know, I'm going to have a shower, I'm going to have breakfast, and I'm going to punch someone in the face. You know, it's not a planned thing. It's like, there's a weak spot, I'm going to go for that. It's like, you know, the lion hunting the gazelle. They go for the sick, weak one because it's easier. They don't have to worry about it, you know. But, you know, if you're confident, the way you walk, you know, little things like, don't walk around with 2 headphones in. Put one out so you can hear. Like, don't have your head down in your phone too much. You know, like little things. Stand with good posture. You know, girls love having their handbag across like this. Just chuck it on one arm. That way if someone grabs it, let them have it. Who cares? They'll run off with it. But if it's here, they're going to drag you around. You know, like I saw someone when I was working, they got dragged behind a car because of that, you know, like for a good 20 meters. Like, wow. You know, because they couldn't get the bag off. Like, you know, it's pretty full on. So, but just changing. For me, like, I run women's self-defense courses, and look, technique-wise, there's not a lot in it. Like, we're not teaching them fancy, you know, combinations or whatever. Teaching them about awareness, you know, building a toolbox, changing their awareness, changing their mindset, you know, getting them to believe that violence is out there. It is going to happen, you know, but it doesn't have to. You know, the way you react can be different, you know, simple things. And, you know, when you do get in those situations, people don't seem to understand that any like gross motor skill where you're doing a big fancy, you know, whatever, doesn't work. It's got to be simple. You know, your sympathetic nervous system takes over. You got to do something really fast, very small, like very simple movement.
Yeah. And that's why I'll add on, one of the pet peeves I see is, let's say late at night, a girl's walking by herself. She's talking on the phone. She thinks the fact that she's talking on the phone and someone's on the other end will deter attackers, right? All this is doing is blurring your vision on this side. But you do have a phone here, and most people's phone have a good case. It's a hard case that prevents it from breaking when you fall. Do you know what this can be used? Self-defense, you can hit someone. So instead of thinking this as, oh, I will pretend I'm okay, this is your weapon. In worst case scenario, someone attacks you at night. So for women, I'm going to tell you that. Remember, you see this? See how hard it is, man? If this hits my skull, it might break my skull, man.
Exactly. Like, you've got, like, you know, most women as well, like most dudes as well. Like, we carry so many things in our pockets and bags and whatever. You know, you got pens, you got keys, you got everything. Just use that stuff. You know, like, possessions are not worth your life. You know, that's probably my biggest thing is, like, you break your phone, who cares? Like, it's just a phone. Just get another one. It's better than getting your head cracked open, or worse, you know, getting assaulted seriously. You know, obviously sexual assaults, things like that. You know, like, it might not be damaging at the time, but it's mentally damaging for years after. You know, Totally, man. Even just not even like assaults, but just like an athlete who has an injury that sticks with him for years, man. Yeah. Like combat sports guys especially, you know, you get in a fight in a bar somewhere and you break your knuckles or something, there's your combat sports career gone. Like, you know, you're years out of the game for that, you know, and then maybe never heal ever again. So, you know, it's street fighting, you know, it's really should be done at a last resort, you know, and do it smart. That's all I can really say is, like, just think about it before you do it.
Yeah. I love it, man. So guys, Sifu Blake, whether you want to train just for health, whether you want to train for culture and performance, or you want to train for the ring or self-defense, I think he's got the full package, man. So love that you came on this channel. Thank you for contacting me after I featured you, and you are always welcome. We can even talk right after your next fight if you want to come on. So the invitation's there.
Be great. That'd be great, man. We should definitely do it. And just so everyone knows as well who is following the channel, the old channel that I do have my videos on will get taken down soon, and it will be moving over to my school's channel because I'm just migrating everything to one place. It's just easier. That way I'll be popping up stuff about, like, our school, myself, my students, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, if you're worried about that, like, you know, just have a look at our school's page. And that's where it'll be.
Cool. So with that being said, man, Sifu Blake, he will be back. This was Fight Commentary Breakdowns. Thank you so much, Blake.
No worries. Thank you, man.